Hey guys, it's Michael, teacher turned trucker, coming at you with another video. This one is one that is kind of drawn from my own background. Before I became a teacher, I spent a lot of time in management. So I tended to do a lot of planning, a lot of hiring. And so I want to talk about some of the things that I consider or recommend being considered and looking at when I'm looking for a specific employer that I want to get hired on to. I know there's some of you guys that are going to be in the situation, depending on your driving history and whatnot, where maybe some of these things are very limited because of choices or things that have happened in your past. So I get that, but still things to consider. And I'm not going to do them in any particular order. I know right off the top is obviously the one that kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about. Will they hire you with no experience? A lot of us who are just getting into the driving scene or moving careers, this is going to be one of the most impactful because it does limit the scope of where we can look to get a job. Okay, so aside from that, let's look on to another one. All right, the second one, again, these are in no particular order, just kind of where I'm at in my process as I'm thinking is, what kind of truck do you want to drive? I'm leaving tanker out of this one specifically because for the most part, you're going to want to have some experience just from what I've seen to be a tank driver or hazardous materials and all that. Is it required? I don't think everyone requires it. Since it's not something that's interested me, it's not something I've done a lot of research into. However, the other three that are most common as far as what I've considered is box truck, reefer, and flatbed. I decided relatively early on that I'm going to try out flatbed because moving from a teaching position where I get up and walk around as I go to just sitting the entire time, it didn't appeal to me. I want something where I get a little bit of exercise, maybe get in better shape than I am, hopefully. So I'm looking at probably flatbed. If you're a bit older, or maybe you've got a bad back, bad knees, or some other situation that doesn't allow you to do the climbing, lifting, and all that, then the other two are going to be good options. You're going to want to look at, I know with reefer, the schedule that's involved because I remember a lot of the scheduling for them is different hours of the day, whereas flatbed, you tend to deliver during normal business hours more frequently. That's a plus and a minus. Minus, obviously, if you get held up somewhere and you can't get there on time and it's a Friday afternoon, you're stuck until Saturday, maybe, more likely Monday. And then box truck, there's a lot of benefits for that because there's so much freight. There's so many different companies that'll hire you. So those are some options to consider. Okay, this next one is going to be limited or open depending on some external factors such as your criminal background, your experience. But I'm going to look at location of terminals. For me, the location of terminal ideally is going to be within an hour or two of where I live. Is that always going to be the case? No. But it is one of the factors I'm considering. I look at the other things on this list, and there's room for some of those to edge this one further down the list for me. But I want to know where their terminals are in case I need to go get some work done. I have to have somewhere to park the truck because I'm taking extended time off. So there's some other factors in there. Where's the terminal? Where can I get support if I need it? All right, this next one is actually going to kind of be two in one because there's two elements that I consider with this one. You have the home time dependability. Are you going to be able to get home in a consistent manner? I'm not talking about the exceptions. I'm not talking about if do you get to go home every night? Do you get to go home every weekend? I'm talking about, is the norm possible for you to be able to get home? And then the other element with this one is going to be the traffic lanes that they drive. If their freight is all in the Midwest and it runs north to south, and you live in Florida like I do, it's not likely that you're going to be able to get home in a timely manner. Realistically, you may not even get hired, depending on how desperate they are for drivers. But if they're running east-west, or if you live somewhere around Virginia, Ohio, something like that will work, because considering the traffic lanes and the dependability of time home, if you're running 8 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours from where you pick up or drop off or whatnot to get home and you're empty, that means you have to drive all the way back there when you're done just to be able to get another load. So looking for where their lanes are, also their freight that they're moving. Can they give you a load heading to your home city or somewhere that you're comfortable driving, in order to be able to make it a useful time versus just, I want to go home, I'm going to go home, let me just go home empty. Because you have to consider, when you get done with your time off and you're going back to work, are you going to want to waste your time on that first day back driving without a load? So your timer started, and then you get there and you have to park, you have to wait for people, or you had to leave early. So it just creates a lot of problems. And again, this is from someone, I'm looking ahead at the problem. I have no doubt that some of you veteran drivers are going to have a different take on this and probably even laughing. That's okay. My purpose for this video is, those of us going through this process, we want to be thinking about these things, but also I really like looking back and 6 months from now, a year from now, however long, and seeing, was I on the right track? Because then I can do another video saying, hey guys, this is the first video. These are some things I learned, some lessons I learned where I was off the mark on this. I'm okay with that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let's move on to the next one. Guys, this next one is ease of access with internal support. I know this is one of those things that's possibly going to get overlooked by a lot of people, but having worked in customer service management and having to move up the chain internally to be able to resolve an issue for someone who's standing right in front of me, it gets tedious. You want to know that if there's a problem, if you have a question, a concern, that you can get a hold of someone quickly. Whether this is a personnel issue where some emergencies happen and you need to take off, or you have a work-related issue, maybe you get hurt on the job, or you're in an accident, or there's a delay or a discrepancy or an issue with the delivery you're making. You want to know what the process is to get a hold of someone. Who is your go-to person? How easily is it to get a hold of them? Are they going to return your calls, your emails, or whatever? These are questions I want to know ahead of time. I want someone who's dependable. I want someone who I can interact with. That's going to mean a lot to me in the overall process. Okay, the next one is one, if you've watched other videos, is probably a little different. For me, I actually rely a lot on the reputation that a company has. I want to see what other drivers for that company are saying, how they carry themselves, not just what they say, but how they personally are carrying themselves. I want to know what the reputation is across other companies. Do others tend to, as a whole, laugh at them, mock them, make fun of them? And I kind of take that one a little bit with a grain of salt, but it does impact my decision. But then the third one is one that I think is overlooked a lot. And this again comes back from my management time. I want to know what the reputation for the company is among their customers. I want to know, is this a company that is the go-to company when something needs to get done because they're trusted, because they have that respect, that integrity to get stuff done? Or is it just kind of, we just take the cheapest we can get and whatever we get, we expect? You have both ends of the spectrum, and it's determined by the customer what they want. But when I start looking at reputation and I talk to people, I like to pay attention to what the overall reputation is about a company, because I take pride in what I do. I want to go work somewhere where others are known for taking pride in what they do. You're always going to have individuals within a corporation or a business that are just there for the dollar and just get to the end of the day. If they happen to work along the way, so be it. But I show up to work. I want to work. I want to earn my check, and I want to be able to take pride in providing for my family. All right, the next one is going to be the age and dependability of the equipment. I do look at certain companies. I watch the videos. I pay attention to the trucks. I'm listening to how much downtime, breakdown time there is with some of these drivers. And I have to ask myself, do I want to put myself in that situation where I'm trying to make money to provide for my family? I don't have a guaranteed income. If I'm not moving, I'm not earning. So the age and the dependability of the equipment go hand in hand. You could even break this one down, depending on how knowledgeable you are of trucks, is what is the specific truck they're running. If they're running a Peterbilt and you happen to know that Peterbilts break down a lot, then you probably want to stay away from them. Now, having said that, that's just the first name that came to my mind. I don't know enough about them to make any determination, but you guys get the idea, hopefully, with what I'm saying. So the age of the equipment is going to keep the mileage down a little bit. Hopefully the breakdowns will be a little less. You're always going to have lemons, unfortunately. Hopefully you're not the one getting the lemon, but sadly someone will. So the age and the dependability of the equipment, you could even tack into this one, what is their breakdown pay policy for if you break down, if you're at home versus on the road? How does that work out? That brings some questions to my mind. If I break down and it's going to be 2 weeks to get parts or whatnot, are they going to pay for me to fly or drive home, or am I going to be giving another rig? How does all that work? I'd love to hear some comments about this one. So some pointers that those of you guys who have been through this experience, you know what it looks like. You guys can add to this and help us out, because again, there's so much information to get, and something's going to slip through the cracks. I know these are things that are percolating in my brain, so let's see what we can do. All right, this next one is less an issue if you're paying out of pocket for your CDL. However, if you're not, if you're relying on your employer to fund the money for you, you want to consider how long is a contract that you're going to have to sign in order to work with them. Is it 12 months? Is it 18 months? Is it 24 months? What is the payoff policy if you leave early? Is it all due then? Are there mechanisms in place to allow you to pay it off over an extended period of time? So these are all questions that you need to know if you plan on going to an employer, and basically they're going to train you all the way through your CDL, get your CDL, and then put you through training. Because if you're someone who is in that position, you don't have the money to fall back on if something happens and they come up and say, you know, I don't think it's working out for us, this partnership. I think it's time that you go. A nice way of saying you're fired or you're laid off, because the end result is the same. You're responsible for the balance of that schooling if you're terminated in most instances. So it's not just willful or personal choice to leave, but occasionally things can happen and the employer decides to let you go. So don't bank on them just forgiving you or saying, oh, okay, we'll give you 12 months to pay it off. Businesses are in the business to make money. We all know this. So don't overlook the element that they're likely not going to extend out a long period of time if for some reason the employment stops. All right, guys, this last one that I have is more or less common sense in a sense, but I want to make it front and center in a way because we're looking for a job. We're not looking for somewhere to hang out and just have a good time. So if you find an employer and it works, great, stay with them. If it's just a matter of you're looking over here, you see things the way they're done over here, man, I bet working over there is so much better. Grass is always greener on the other side, so to speak, we hear. I encourage you to be very slow to leave one place and go to another. Now, if there's other factors, safety issues, maybe you can't get a hold of people when you need to, communication is not good, run time is not good, you're not getting the mile of the income that you need to generate, you're not getting your home time when you need it more often than not. Obviously, that's one that's going to fluctuate a little bit. In those situations, don't be afraid to look somewhere else. But this is where one of the foundations of this channel is I'm thinking through things, I'm trying to plan, I'm encouraging you to plan as well, because like I said in a previous video, there's nothing worse as a husband, as a father, than being in a situation where you're having to react. You want to be able to plan. So you're looking at these things, you're evaluating these 8 or 10 things. If you're employed somewhere, you have time to look. You have time to do some research. Especially once you're employed now, you start knowing, okay, well, these are some of the things that I can look at. These are more important questions to ask versus, man, everyone says that working over there is great. Jumping from one place to another. I've worked with a lot of people who do that. And I've interviewed a lot of folks. When I look at an application and I see that they've had 3 jobs in the last 6 months, I'm not likely to hire them. I don't put a lot of stock that they're going to stay. As someone who has trained and hired people, I would rather someone who's a little bit slower on the learning process that I have to invest more time in, but who has shown a history of staying with a job when they get one. I'd rather take that time and invest in that person. They tend to be harder workers. They tend to be more loyal versus someone who's real flashy, very charismatic. They have all the right answers. It doesn't matter when I'm looking at your application and I see that you can't stay at a job. It's like something's always nicer. We always hear that squirrel shiny. Look over there, I'm distracted. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. Remember, continue learning, asking questions, being teachable. And if you don't understand something, ask, but don't get frustrated because things aren't going the way you hoped they would. And just leave a job, because a lot of times if you can work through those initial struggles that come after about month 4, month 5 is where a lot of times I see that stuff starts to materialize. The honeymoon phase is kind of over, so to speak. You work through those things, and that can be a long-term job. You learn the relationships, you develop those relationships through the process of working through those things. So, yeah, there's that one. All right, guys. So again, this is Michael, teacher turned trucker. These are some of the things that I consider or am considering as I look for an employer. It's all rattling around in my brain, depending on where I'm at in a given day. Some of the things seem more important than the others, but I would encourage you guys, check each of these things out, look into them, and evaluate them through their own lens of who you are, what options that you have based on your driving history, your experience. Maybe you already have your CDL. and be willing to ask questions. There's a lot of other YouTubers, and I know that they field questions all the time. So if you have any other questions or suggestions that we need to be looking at or considering, please be sure to include them in the comments below. Other than that, again, I'm Michael. I'm teacher turned trucker, and wish you guys the best. Keep on learning.